Hi everyone, and thank you for watching this video recording that describes the Modeling Analysis Predictions and Projections program and its fiscal year 2024 call for proposals. I'm Dan Barry. I manage the Modeling Analysis Predictions and Projections, or MAPP program, and we're going to do a tag team effort on this video to talk about the program and what we are looking for in proposals in fiscal year 24 and how to apply to the program. So I hope this is a helpful video for you as you think about submitting an application to our program. The team in MAPP is myself, Courtney Bird, who is our program specialist, and David Benson, who's our program analyst. And as I mentioned, we're going to share reporting duties on this video. So we'll switch up as we go along and talk about different aspects of the solicitations and how to apply to the program. But first, a little bit of an overview. So we're going to talk about the MAPP program, where we're located in NOAA, what we do generally, and then we're going to talk about the solicitations and how to apply and give you some specifics on the process. At the end, there's going to be an opportunity for question and answer. So what we're going to ask you to do is use the form on our solicitation website to submit a question to the program. You can also email any of us or our MAPP programmatic email address, which is available in the information sheets for each of the competitions this year, to ask a question. And we'll try to get back to that question as soon as possible, and we'll also post it anonymously on our solicitation page so that other prospective investigators can see the responses to the questions and benefit from your question. So please don't hesitate to submit questions to us. A little bit about MAPP. MAPP is a competitive research program that's located in the Earth System Science and Modeling Division in NOAA's Climate Program Office. The Climate Program Office is one of a number of different programs in the Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research, which is one of NOAA's 5 primary line offices. Our line office works with the other service-oriented line offices in the agency to help advance research and development that can deliver impact in NOAA's mission spaces. And our solicitations in the Climate Program Office are focused on helping to advance those particular mission areas at NOAA. So the MAPP program in particular, as its name implies, is focused largely on climate and Earth system modeling and the applications of that modeling for helping to understand future climate change, understand interannual to decadal predictability and prediction, help to monitor the climate system using modeling approaches, and then work in some important application areas, including drought and marine ecosystems, which are key areas that NOAA focuses on across its line offices in its mission space and portfolio. And we primarily work through competitive solicitations like the 3 that we're offering this year for you to apply to, and often have annual funding calls that are part of the Omnibus Climate Program Office solicitation of proposals, which these competitions were announced as part of. We have another side to the office as well that is focused more on social science and the interactions with communities who are trying to build resilience to climate impacts, and a number of programs that bring that social science element. So we really do pride ourselves on being an end-to-end program office that's focused on the whole value chain of research activities. The MAPP program in particular, as I mentioned, is focused on modeling and modeling applications. We work quite a bit with the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory at NOAA to help bring the external community into model development and model application activities. We focus on a variety of different types of research. Some of that research can be in a more applied or exploratory phase, but also some of the research we fund does transition various outcomes into operational use or real-time continued use after the conclusion of the research project. We like projects to try to focus on science at a process level and have a strong process basis across all of our solicitations, and to use advanced modeling and observational techniques and data sets for the research projects. We have many partners in the program. We partner extensively across the Climate Program Office. We've had a number of solicitations in collaboration with other partner programs in the office. We also work with the integrated information systems that are part of the Climate Program Office, and that includes NITIS, which focuses on drought. The D in NITIS is for drought, and the National Integrated Heat Health Information System, or NIHIS, which is focused on heat and health-related heat impacts. We work with a wide array of programs outside of CPO and across NOAA, including the IUCE program, the National Marine Sanctuaries Office, and the Fisheries Office. And we also work with other programs outside of NOAA, other federal programs, and other organizational entities across the United States, including the U.S. Global Change Research Program, CLIVAR, and others to help integrate our science into broader use. There are many beneficiaries of our science. Most directly, we're working to advance the NOAA mission by bringing the external community into interaction with that mission through research projects. But also we think about the societal effects of the research we fund, both the direct effects of that research, which includes hiring and developing the next generation of scientists and bringing new and underrepresented communities into our science, but also about the stakeholders out in society for this work, thinking about, for example, the impacts of drought or heat, tropical cyclones, and extreme precipitation, and many other aspects of natural impact on the public. And we're very mindful of that. We do like to see both aspects in proposals, both cognizance of the NOAA mission relevance, but also cognizance of the broader relevance of the proposed work to society more broadly. We fund research across the United States. This map is showing recipients of awards that are active in fiscal year 2023, which is the current fiscal year we're operating under. And you can see there's a wide array of institutional and geographic diversity on here, largely universities, but also some private sector entities as well, which receive funding from the program for different research projects. We also work quite a bit with federal entities, both NOAA and non-NOAA, across the United States, and can fund activities both inside and outside the agency at federal institutions, although we cannot provide salary support for federal employees. And you can see a wide geographic array and institutional array of close partners in our research activities across the United States. At NOAA, there's a hierarchy of projects and research and development activities that follow this funnel model, going from the top, which are more exploratory types of projects, down to the bottom, which is focused on transitions to operations. And programs in NOAA focus on funding research across or up and down this funnel. The MAPP program is not a highly operationally transfer-focused program. However, we do fund activities that span the range of this funnel, all the way from projects that are exploratory but still within the NOAA mission and highly relevant to the mission, down to projects that do actually transition capabilities into operational or at least continued use and application at NOAA, and for activities that NOAA is involved in, like the National Climate Assessment, for example. So we do fund as a program a wide array of types of activities and research projects. Now I'm going to transfer the presentation over to Courtney, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the MAPP program and what it's like to work with the MAPP program.
Thanks, Dan. MAPP encourages engagement and supports interagency activities for PIs with relevant community meetings, such as the U.S. Climate Modeling Summit and the CMIP 6 Write-a-thon. Our task forces at MAPP act as a platform for communication between our PIs as well as our network of expertise at NOAA. Next slide, Dan. We have core focus areas at MAPP, being climate analysis and monitoring, climate and earth system model development, drought, marine, and other applications, as well as climate projections. Next slide, Dan. And from these solicitations, we have task forces created for our PIs. And this is a coordinated research effort by our program, which allows our investigators to remain focused on the topic, as well as communicate with each other and have cross-program collaboration. An anonymous review was sent out for our task force participants, and it was found that it was an overall well-received experience. Many of our task force participants felt that our telecons were useful, as well as our group activities, and that our task forces were a worthwhile commitment. Some of the feedback specifically stated that the task forces built a community as well as had professional development, especially for our early career scientists. These task forces also provided cross-project collaboration and networking that we spoke about in the last slide. So our program by the numbers, MAPP has over 100 principal investigators engaged annually with over 80 ongoing projects. This means we have over 200 publications each year, as well as special educations and collections in scientific journals from our task forces. We do have transitions of research into operations or applications each year, as well as community reports from our MAPP organized workshops. So being a MAPP PIs are required to submit annual and final reports. We also ask MAPP PIs to be engaged in our task forces that are created by the solicitation. This allows for communication and collaboration, as we spoke on earlier. We do promote the work of funded investigators through our website, social media, and climate.gov. And funded investigators and managers organize lead sessions and relevant community meetings, which could be at AMS or any other meeting throughout the year. For the FY24, the MAPP program will be having 3 competitions. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Courtney. That was great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit generally about some of the deadlines and larger features of applying to the program, and then talk about 2 out of 3 of our competitions before I turn it over to David to talk about the other one and some additional details about applying. So we published the announcement of funding opportunity last week on July 13th. The page that's shown on the bottom right here is where you'll find information on Climate Program Office's website about the NOFO and also about various dates and details about how to apply. It's also the place where you'll find the information sheets for each competition. So I want to just explain that the NOFO is a formal legal document that is released via grants.gov and goes out widely and talks about, in general, the Climate Program Office and how to apply for funding. It does not describe in detail the competitions that you are applying to. For those details, you really need to go find the information sheet PDFs and read through the details about the solicitations and what we're looking for in terms of the type of research that you can propose to the program. There is first a letter of intent phase to applying to our program, and those letters of intent are due on August 18th. The letter of intent process is intended to help for you to give us a sense of the general idea you think you want to propose to the program, and for us to reflect on the degree to which that idea is going to be found to be relevant to the solicitation, but also more broadly to our program and to the agency. It's an informal process. We're going to give you some very quick feedback on the letter of intent, which itself is a brief document. We'll give you a sense of whether we encourage or discourage a proposal. Sometimes we also send a sort of neutral reply where there are maybe some aspects of the idea described in the letter of intent that sound good to us, but some other aspects that perhaps would need to be improved for a full application to be successful. Even if we reject your letter of intent or discourage a proposal, you are able to apply to the program for funding. It's just that we're trying to save you time, where if you submitted a similar application to your letter of intent, it likely would not be as successful as other applications based on what we've seen from the letters of intent. So it's intended to help you save some work and not having to submit a full proposal that may not be found to be relevant to the program ultimately. We will try to provide you feedback within a 4-week window after you submit your letter of intent. As I mentioned, we can't provide too much feedback because we try to get back to you as quickly as possible so that you can maximize the amount of time you have to write your proposal. And full applications are due by midnight on November 17th. This is a hard deadline. If you submit your application after this, it cannot be considered as a tenable application for resource support from NOAA for legal reasons. So make sure that you have your application submitted in time before that deadline. As I mentioned, we have 3 separate solicitations or competitions this year, and we're going to go through those one by one over the rest of the video. The first solicitation is focused on on research to support the National Marine Fisheries Service climate mission at NOAA. So we work a lot with what's called NIMFS. NIMFS has the responsibility for regulating seafood catch in the United States to help preserve certain species and ensure that we can have an economically viable catch in future years while still maximizing the economic use of that resource. And we've worked with fisheries for many years now. We have collaborated with fisheries on particularly efforts to help build seasonal to interannual prediction systems to help understand how climate variability and climate change impact various biogeochemical systems and fisheries, and to help set up modeling systems now that can provide operational predictions and projections of future change for these valuable ecosystems in the United States. So MAPP has played a key role working with fisheries and working with other programs in CPO to help advance that science and now to develop these type of prediction systems. So this is an effort that has really matured over the last decade or so from much more exploratory science now into science that's actually being operationalized by NOAA. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that because that's really where this solicitation is landing at this juncture. What we're looking for are proposals that are going to lay the groundwork for the application of various regional models to seasonal to multidecadal prediction and also longer-term projections of biogeochemistry and physical change in our nation's fisheries and ocean regions that impacts fish catch, fish productivity, and the health of these ecosystems going into the future. So we're looking for a few different types of research projects. There are two categories of projects that we're looking for under this solicitation. One of them is to advance different methodologies that can be used in modeling systems and the application of modeling systems for predictions and projections of the health of ecosystems going into the future. And I list a number of different areas here. There are also additional areas described in the research solicitation that you can think about crafting your proposals and letters of intent around. The second is an activity that really works with an initiative that we have at NOAA called the Climate and Ecosystems Fisheries Initiative, which is building two different systems, one to do prediction and one to do projections of marine ecosystems looking into the future to help inform fisheries management. This initiative has initially focused on the development of a grid that applies a regional version of MAPP ocean model coupled with biogeochemistry to the Northwest Atlantic region off of the eastern seaboard of the United States. This is a very mature implementation of MAPP. However, we would like to, as an agency, also have implementations of MAPP for a number of other regions and important ecosystem regimes around the U.S. And its outlying regions and their coastal waters where fisheries activities are focused. And those development activities are much more nascent, so we're looking to accelerate those activities through this research solicitation in the other regions as well to complement the advanced nature of the Northwest Atlantic region. So look in the information sheet as well for that information about which regions we're looking at. There's also going to be a webinar that's co-hosted with the CVP program as well, where we're going to have guests from fisheries and OAR to talk about the state of affairs with CEFI and the modeling development. So keep your eyes out for that on the CPO website, particularly the MAPP page and the CVP page. If you'd like information about that, you can also email me or the MAPP program to find information on that webinar. So we really want to see these proposals to this solicitation be highly relevant to fisheries and the Climate Ecosystems and Fisheries Initiative. And there are a variety of other details that you'll find in the information sheet about this solicitation to help guide you in preparing your letter of intent and your proposal. The second competition that I am managing in FY24 is an extension of our model diagnostics activity, which has also been funded for a number of years now. This is an activity that is highly collaborative, in particular with the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory. Initially, this work came out of work that the CLIVAR MJO task force had worked on, as well as a previous CPO MAP task force focused on CMIP5 results, where we basically developed this idea of trying to evolve the type of science we were funding that was looking at and analyzing projection data sets and see how we could make that type of analysis relate back to model development. A key issue there is that by the time CMIP datasets are available to the research community, the modeling centers have often moved on to develop the next versions of their models. And so analyses of the previous generation models by the community are often not as relevant or useful or actionable to the model development community as the more recent version of the models. So one of the ways that we thought about trying to resolve this issue is by encouraging analysis of the CMIP datasets and the development of process-oriented diagnostics that can be kind of evergreen and help inform model development into the future. So we've been funding a series of activities called the Model Diagnostics Task Force, which is now led by GFDL, also features significant activity from NCAR and the Department of Energy, and relies on the development of diagnostics by the the broad research community outside of NOAA in collaboration with NOAA scientists to help develop useful diagnostics to advance GFDL models. And this diagnostic system that's been developed is now essential to the GFDL model development process. It's actually a core component of their own development pathway and process at the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory. So this is an example of research which can often be curiosity-based or applied, but then gets into a very practical use case for NOAA and for our modeling center. So a few details specifically about this solicitation. We're interested in application and use of CMIP6 data, as that's the most current MIP data available, including application of the core MIPS, the DEC experiments, but also some of the subsidiary model intercomparison projects that have been done as part of the CMIP architecture in the sixth iteration of the experiment. And there are a variety of specific focus areas we would like to see for development of diagnostics, and those are listed on the slides here, so I'll go through them briefly. One is looking at the simulation of climate and weather extremes, so there are various examples of this called out here, although other types of extremes are also valid under this research solicitation. But we're very interested in tropical and extratropical cyclone systems, mesoscale convective systems, and atmospheric rivers. These are areas where there's less development of diagnostics in the diagnostic package, and so we're encouraging diagnostics to be developed in this particular area. Benchmarking processes that support the successful prediction of extreme events on S2S timescales. So this is distinct from the priority above it in that we are interested in particular in subseasonal to seasonal variability and extremes that are driven by that variability, and how models do in terms of capturing the processes that undergird that type of extreme expression of climate variability within a climate change signal. We're very interested in the aerosol indirect effect in particular, and diagnostics that can help us pin down the performance of the model and sources of bias at a process level in representing the aerosol indirect feedback. In particular, projects that are framed around how these biases can impact model estimates of climate sensitivity and also climate projection uncertainty are of interest. We're interested in model precipitation bias and how those drive key societal impacts. NOAA has a major initiative right now called the Precipitation Prediction Grand Challenge, which is focused largely on improving the forecast skill of precipitation across timescales. However, we are really interested in process-based diagnosis of the source of precipitation bias, and in particular, the source of bias for extreme precipitation events, and diagnostics that can connect to societal concerns like flooding or other impacts of extreme precipitation are very much of interest to us in benchmarking the performance of our modeling systems. We're interested in stratosphere-troposphere coupling. There has been some successful work that's gone on under the Model Diagnostics Task Force that has advanced our benchmarking and understanding of the process-based deficiencies in models. We are continuing to have an interest in those type of diagnostics for development in the next iteration of the Model Diagnostic Task Force. And we're very interested more broadly in vanguard elements of Earth system model development where there may be less focus on diagnostics. We have very few diagnostics on the cryosphere, for example. That includes both sea ice, but also land ice processes, mountain glaciers, large ice sheets, and various processes associated with those particular features of the cryosphere, and other vanguard areas of Earth system model development, including the biosphere, ecosystem representations, etc. So we do encourage diagnostics that will help benchmark those kind of more experimental parts of Earth system model development that GFDL and other laboratories are focused on. There are a variety of other descriptions and expectations for projects submitted to this particular solicitation that are given in the information sheet. But I will mention that we really do want a solid process basis in the proposals to focus on processes that relate to model formulation in a way where model developers will be able to learn from the diagnostics where they should look in the model to make improvements to ultimately improve the bias in the model. And also, we really do like to see solid use of multiple different types of observational data sets as part of this work. And that can include data sets that were developed by and funded by various NOAA programs, including the Climate Observations and Monitoring Program in CPO and the ESSM division, but also other parts of NOAA like NESDIS, and other data sets that are key for analyzing particular processes. That could also include field data from various campaigns that have happened over the last decade or so that focus on particular process activities in the climate system to help benchmark your evaluations. So please do look at the information sheet for this, and please also do look at the updated list of diagnostics that are either integrated into the current software framework for the Model Diagnostic Task Force or that are under development to help contextualize what you're planning to propose to the program. I am going to transfer over to David now, who's going to talk about the third solicitation and a variety of other elements of applying to the MAPP program. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. So our final competition for FY24 is the Early Career Award. And this award intends to address the need at NOAA to foster relationships with the new generation of exceptionally skilled scientists. And typically NOAA has had a history of having internships and fellowships and postdoc programs. But this has not always translated into career research and creating a development workforce here at NOAA. And so this award is hoping to bridge that gap where people who are just at the beginning of their career can have an opportunity to work with NOAA and start careers that are connected to NOAA with NOAA in the long term. And so the Early Career Award intends to bridge that gap by focusing on supporting early career scientists that are looking at science questions that are of interest to NOAA and that are relevant to MAPP activities. MAPP intends to support this year early career researchers who are doing work on Earth system development and other applications that are relevant to NOAA mission and relevant to the MAPP program. So we want research projects, or we're encouraging research projects that are focused on topics that are prioritized by the MAPP program. And some of these topics include advancing climate and Earth system models to better simulate climate variability and change. We're looking at improving multi-annual to decadal climate prediction systems and products, multi-decadal projections, and applying Earth system models to better understand, predict, and project droughts, extreme heat, sea level change, and marine ecosystems. And there's more about the things that MAPP, science questions that MAPP is interested in on our MAPP website. And so if you can look at our scientific areas, you can see topics that will be relevant to the MAPP program. Proposed work should be clearly related to the broader NOAA mission and to CPO's mission and its societal changes. And it should also be relevant to the NOAA institution that the early career researcher intends to collaborate with. And more information of this can be seen in the information sheet. Proposals will also be encouraged that consider stakeholder engagement and how the research can be useful to the end user. Relevant work also that uses new observational data set, new models, and also simulation-based techniques, and reanalysis data is also encouraged. And we also encourage projects that consider DEIA elements as well as part of the research that will be submitted for this proposal. MAPP is hoping that we can fund up to $300,000 per year for up to 4 years, and more information about this call can be found on the information sheet. So a little bit about the general review process here at CPO and funding recommendations. Proposals typically undergo a rigorous two-stage review process, and this is well described in the NOFO. And this review process goes through four criteria. One is the scientific and technical merit. Another is the qualification of the team involved in this proposal. And third would be how appropriate the budget is, considering the size of the project. And these first three criteria are usually part of the stage one review process, which weighs 75% of the entire score. And then the second stage, which is the stage two panel, evaluates the relevance of this proposal to the MAPP program and to the NOAA mission as a whole. And this stage two panel accounts for 25% of the score. The funding priority for applications is set by the total score from the stage 1 and 2 panel processes. And eventually there's the ranking where, based on funding, we generally fund the top quarter to third of the proposals that are successful. So final decisions on proposals are typically not made until spring of the following year. So that would be spring of 2024. But depending on the government budgeting processes, it can take a little longer. So where do you start? First of all, we have a NOFO that is put out by CPO, and it's published on grants.gov and on this link that you see on this slide. And Dan has gone through the process earlier of explaining what the LOI process and the NOFO process is. So I would encourage you to go and read through the NOFOs. Some of the information that's on the NOFO is what the program objectives are and priorities, an expected number of size of awards, and the duration of awards per CPO program. You have information about who's eligible to apply, the elements of the LOI, elements of the full proposals, and the deadlines for the LOIs and the full proposals. And you also have information about what the review process looks like and the selection criteria, as well as other awards reporting requirements. Information sheets accompanying the NOFO has detailed descriptions of all the information you will need about each competition. And so I would encourage you to read those information sheets clearly, as they have most of the answers that you'd be looking for. And if you still go through that and you have more questions, feel free to send us an email and we'll be happy to get back to you on that. So Dan has already gone through the LOI process, so I'm just going to rush through this quickly. The purpose of this process is to provide feedback on your proposed work. You're strongly encouraged to submit an LOI, though it's not required. And your LOI should not be more than 2 pages in length, and it should identify which specific competition that you are targeting. It should have a tentative title and the name of the PIs that will be on this proposal, on the proposal if encouraged to move into a proposal. You should submit a statement of the problem. The summary of the work should be completed, including methodology and the data sets that you need or will be needing as part of this process or as part of the proposal. An approximate estimate of the project cost and what the relevance to the competition that's being targeted. The LOIs will be submitted through a link that is provided in the information sheet at the deadline that has already been described earlier in this talk. So we evaluate all LOIs and determine whether an application can be encouraged, marginally encouraged, or discouraged. And you will receive all the responses to our LOI and you will receive the response to your LOI from us by September 15th at the end of the day. Note that the LOI evaluation does not involve an assessment of the scientific merit. We're just talking about the relevance and whether or not you're encouraged to apply or discouraged from applying. And even if you're discouraged from applying, you can still send in an LOI, but that proposal, you can still send in a full proposal, but it's more likely to not be successful. Our response will know whether an LOI is deemed relevant, and we will try to respond as quickly as possible, but we will not have time to provide full information about the specifics. Specifically for the early career competition, proposals who already have a working connection with someone at NOAA, a collaborator at either the NOAA lab or at a NOAA institution, an operational center, a NOAA office, or a corporative institute, you can scope your LOI in coordination with that collaborator, and we encourage you to state in your LOI that you're already working with the collaborator and where the collaborator is situated at. For those who do not have a working connection with the NOAA collaborator, you should clearly identify the potential collaborating institution in the LOI. But do not reach out to the institution during the LOI stage. We'll just ask you to let us know what institution you're interested in working with, and then we will go ahead to reach out to that institution on your behalf. While you scope your LOI, you'll be encouraged to state how the relevance of your proposal or your research would be to the potential collaborating institution. The information sheet has more information on the eligible institutions that you can. So I said earlier, applications are reviewed according to the 4 criteria that we've mentioned. The NOFO describes the application elements, which are a title page, including the institutions, the PIs, the authorized representatives, and the total funding and breakdown by institution and year. And this is for the full proposal. You're expected to have 1 abstract, 1-page abstract, and results from the last 3 years of research. Statement of work should also be added there, and that depends on the amount of PIs that will be working on that project. There should be a data information sharing plan, a budget table with justification, federal forms, and indirect cost rate agreement. And there should be a CV that contains publication within the past 3 years, plus 5 other papers that are relevant to the proposal. You should have a statement of the current and pending funding support, as well as figures and references that help to provide more information on proposals. And the proposal should include appendices that would include a diversity, inclusion, and broader impact statement. And I would like to encourage future proposals to consider taking seriously the diversity, inclusion, and broader impact statement. Some other general guidance to think of when submitting a proposal is to be clear about what competition you are targeting and what type of proposal you're submitting. If you have any questions about, especially administrative questions about the NOFO, please contact Diane Brown, and her email is here on the slide. We do have opportunity for MAPP PIs to request high performance computing support, and we have also more information on that on the information sheet. We are expecting that public access to grant and contract produced data is made available as a result of federal regulations. There's also more details about that on the information sheet. And we are also requiring a data sharing plan, as I've already stated above. So if you have any more questions about the LOIs or the proposal process or application process, please submit your questions via the form that's linked on this page. We will update our FAQs with the questions that you have. Thank you for being interested in our MAPP program and the program competitions. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. If you have any more information that we have not covered, please reach out to us through our email, and good luck with your application. Thank you.